What's this, round 2?
Captain Mummakard, Atheist.
Yeah, I know, Captain's I know.
I think they'd be better now. It's really not healthy these days.
Yeah.
Much stronger, it's really good.
Much stronger.
It's going to be healthy. I had Tayyabs the other night on the live stream, right? Wendy Jibdal, what's it? And they ate Tayyabs,
sorry? I didn't get...
Tayyabs, you know Tayyabs. That's a Tayyabs.
You mean Michaela and...
Michaela, whatever, yeah.
Wendy, right?
Wendy Woostein and Hugh Hitton.
So what is your intention to come here, What's your intention to come here? What's your today?
Today I want to talk about, I was challenging him, and Raj is coming here. I'm going to challenge Islamophobia in pop. So part of phase 3, I'm going to be saying, look, the liberal hypocrisy, Tel Aviv Steve, include everyone but the Muslims. Christians, where's the love? So I want to tackle Islamophobia. I want to highlight Islamophobia from a very right-wing perspective.
I mean,
I'm going to work on crushing in the pocket.
So that's your job?
Crushing in the pocket.
That's a mission, right?
Yeah. And I'm going to make egg on shots, but not like you and all the Islamophobes this time. So this time you'll be alright. This time you can say, mashallah, you stay behind me. I'm like, where are these Islamophobes? Wait, Islamophobes.
So you know, Islamophobes does, it's real, right? It does exist. What's the definition of Islamophobia?
You know what, I will show you. My phone is with James. Let me get my backup phone. I got many phones.
Alright. So can you tell me, Ralph, what is the definition
Let me bring this up.
of Islamophobia? Can you tell me? Because I want to know from you, from your mouth, what is Islamophobia? What's the definition of it?
So the government definition that was stopped by COVID says, I'm trying to get the right text, but from my memory, Islamophobia is a type of racism that targets perceived Muslimness and Muslims.
So did you hear this?
This is the definition by the government of Islamophobia. It's saying, if I see a Muslim in the niqab, or if I say you're praying in the park, so Muhammad hijab comes to pray in the park, and that Islamophobe, Steve, metrosexual Steve, he sees the perceived Muslimness, and he doesn't like it, and he said, hey, so under the Hansard definition.
Yeah, I think Islamophobia is real because there is some people saying that Islamophobia doesn't exist.
Yeah, you see the Islamophobes, did you?
Yeah.
They used to hear that. Ask them that.
So,
You know my question quickly. What do you love about Muslims?
I love about
No, what's the Islamophobes? And they normally don't have an
there's
answer.
many here in the park.
So if you're all inclusive and you're not Islamophobe.
I mean, they say that they hate Islam, but they like Muslims.
This is a lie they try. This is like a trick that the shaitan puts inside. Yeah, this is a shaitan trick. Yeah, the shaitan they did. Oh, I don't have a problem with Muslims. I just hate Islam. Well, Muslim is someone who practices Islam. What do you mean? How can you like one and not like the other? That's the trick.
So that's your mission.
Shaitan is working. You'll find it. You'll hunt the Islamophobes.
That is your mission, right?
And then Captain Mummakard is doing metrosexual television.
Yeah, we're living
So what's the 14 words? Tell me of the 14 words.
The 14 words is like a pattern of words. Like, you know, like you have ideas that have word patterns. The idea is to give each people their own rights to self-determination. So, for example, we must secure the existence of people in Dhaka and a future of children in Dhaka. It's saying the 14 words for the Bengali people in Dhaka. We must secure the existence of Ethiopian people and a future for Ethiopian children is the 14 words for Ethiopia. Now, when the white guys say England, everyone says you're a Nazi. You're not Nazi. But it must be 14 for everybody. So the Muslim version, we must secure the existence of the Ummah and a future for Muslim society. 14 for Islam.
You're a funny guy.
Thank you.
So do you wanna you said you want this message.
My friend has my phone, Pablo, but I'll show you the definition.
Because you messaged me saying that you
Yeah, I just have one. Do you think we can have one little later? Let me see if I can find it. Let me see if I can find your definition.
Yeah, but then they're not doing anything. Yeah, exactly, because they get that's how Like, no, if you go to everyone else, you go straight to the source.
I went to the ancestry Islamophobia by the government. Come on, Lee, Baladi.
I mean, you didn't definitely do something. Who the fuck is he?
Oh, Jesus Christ. I can't recognize this one.
I'm heavily disguised.
You're filmed, man.
This is the government just finds it. Let's have a look at the government definition.
Yeah.
We're not going to go against it because we're waiting on one country. Why don't we all just grow up our hands, get over it? At least I mean,
Islamophobia. So this is for him.
Think front page of the Mirror.
I've explained why this is an Islamophobe.
That's his friend.
Steve is Islamophobe.
Can't see it.
Steve is an Islamophobe. I made I'm going to teach the Islamophobe.
Front page of the Mirror. Well, still, there you go.
Far-right group recruits Nazi campaign to UK's countryside. Countryside?
And then there's a lovely photo with them all faces covered, obviously, except for Laura and Mark in the middle. Were you not there?
That's interesting. I'm too... I show my face. I'm too classy myself.
Perceived Muslim. Even perceiving it. So he went back to the definition of an Islamophobe. According to the
What was the definition of a Hindu phobe?
Hinduphobe is the same thing, just replace Hindu.
But you don't often hear that word, do you?
No, the Hindus
Strange that,
They're
isn't
not
it?
under attack. It's the Muslims under attack all the time. The Muslims are on top.
Why are you sticking up for them? Why are you sticking up for them?
The creator has this.
Sorry?
The creator has this in mind. I can only do the will of the creator.
Sorry, what are you saying the creator has told you to?
I only live my life in the creator.
So the creator's told you to stick up for Muslims.
The creator tells me everything. I can only submit to the will of the creator. Ask the creator.
Does the creator talk to you?
No, that doesn't work.
So how does the creator tell you to stick up for Muslims? How does the creator tell you to stick up for Muslims? It's a load of text.
So Islamophobia is rooted in racism, and it's a type of racism that targets expressions of Muslimism.
Is racism bad?
Perceived
It's funny, isn't it? How
perceived Muslim.
isn't it funny how race and religion suddenly are swapped and interchanged? It's funny, isn't it? Strange, isn't it? Does the government do everything right?
Do you think? So let me ask you a question. Do you think?
Why are you conflating ethnicity with religion?
Let me ask you a question. Do you think some?
No, you don't answer a question with a question. Why are you conflating? Are you going to talk or wait?
You go first.
Why are you conflating religion with race?
So I'm not. So what I'm saying is, I'm going to ask you this.
No, you can't answer a question with a
Let me
question.
speak again.
If you answer my question,
I don't get to tell you how to ask questions.
why are you conflating race with religion?
Three chances, then you have to wait for the answer quietly. So, because attacks on Muslims are not just attacks on Muslims. They might attack a black brother because he's also black and a Muslim. They might attack a brown Muslim because he's also
You're kind of making my point that Muslims are all different
the
races.
attacks are conflating this.
How? Where is the logic in that
Do you
statement?
think all attacks on Muslims are nothing to do
You
with
just
race?
pointed out that Muslims can be completely different races. So therefore, how come an attack, whatever
Let me
an
ask you something
attack,
here. Do you agree that an attack on a black Muslim might also be because you're black and a Muslim, not just because you're black?
and an attack on a Muslim who's white is an attack on them being white?
So Jordan M was to get beaten up.
There's very little logic to what you're trying to say.
Jordan, so you're not seeing the logic.
No, I can't. You're helping my argument by pointing out that Muslims are different races. So therefore, why is an attack on Islam racist?
No, let me try to help you. I can't see it yet.
Can you answer a question without being exceedingly condescending?
I get bored if you keep interrupting like a pound something.
I get bored when you don't answer points.
Then you get bored and wander off. Right? Or you
Indeed.
can learn to
Likewise.
listen.
Learn to listen.
So if you take the two variables, religion and race,
Yes.
there's only two options. They're independent variables or racist attacks. on
Exactly,
religion.
independent variables.
They're either, I said they're either independent variables, all racist attacks are not religious, all religious attacks are not racist, or they are conflated variables. where
Why are they
religious attacks also based because the brother might be Ethiopian.
So where's your evidence? Where's your evidence for that conflation?
I'm not having any evidence. I'm saying so. Therefore, a definition that does not assume there's no conflation is not a surprise.
Well, where is the evidence of conflation? How are the two connected? Where's the evidence that there were no fairies at the bottom of my garden? You need to evidence existence of something, don't you?
I don't know. So before you get it, I do think.
So you're coming out with the old corny line that some people don't like Muslims because they don't like brown people. Is that really the crux of what you're saying?
The government is identified by its state.
So you're going with the government there? So the government are the...
It's not very strong, you know. They have to show patience.
So when you say the government, what was that source? What was that precise source? What was that precise source of the government? Hansard. So Hansard notes of a debate in Parliament. Hansard records debates in Parliament. So it was a Hansard
Notice
note.
how you can't handle.
So it was a Hansard note of a discussion in Parliament.
The English liberal has no self-control. He has no discipline. He has no dean that allows him to show control. Alhamdulillah.
Whereas the white supremacist Indian has an ego problem. Has a rather large ego problem.
So the Hansard process is documenting the parliamentary process.
Yeah.
And the parliamentary process at committee stage is taking around its next round of
So you
reading.
just said it was the government, and now you're clarifying it's the Hansard.
Do you know what Hansard even is?
You just defined it, even if I didn't, and I did.
Do you know what Hansard is?
You exactly what you just said.
Notice how the brother won't answer the question. Third time lucky. Do you know what Hansard is?
Yes, and I did just answer. It's a record of discussion within Parliament.
It's the official document.
Yes, yeah.
So Hansard is documenting the process that the government is preparing to define Islamophobia.
Not just what the government. It's not a document of the government. It's a document of Parliament, including all members. So a Hansard note is not the same as a government policy position, or a government statement.
That would be often.
Exactly. So your statement that it was a government document wasn't quite correct.
Let me say this.
What were your words?
I said, here's the Hansard definition.
No, you said government. You said that's a government definition, I think were your words. Play the tape back.
But notice you're running around and you're very uncomfortable.
No. You're uncomfortable with anyone who ever highlights your inconsistencies or your inaccuracies.
What's interesting is why are you avoiding talking about the substance of Islam?
Okay, well let's go back to that. Why are you conflating someone standing against Islam with racism? No, the government or Hansard? Right, so not the government.
Don't waste time with silly and pettiness.
Well,
the definition in that text.
Be accurate.
In that definition, the one you're avoiding,
A Hansard note.
is saying that the current world...
So the content of every Hansard note is now factually true, or philosophically true. You're presenting it as evidence of substance.
That's you just avoiding because you're scared.
What am I avoiding, Ralph?
You're avoiding a conversation where people take turns. You're avoiding a conversation where
you're doing pretty well with talking. You're doing pretty well with talking, aren't you, Ralph? I think if we were to do a word count of your words and my words, I think I know who will have more.
If we did a count of who interrupts the other one first, who would be winning?
And word count?
No, interruption count.
I think that might be equal. I think it might be. I think that one might be equal. So come on, ethnicity, religion. Why?
It's very difficult when you don't take turns.
Why? Okay, I'll ask you a question. Will you answer?
No, I wanted to take turns. With my question, will you learn how to take turns? Alhamdulillah, will you show the will of God
for a few minutes,
to be able to take the message from the Creator and speak like a normal, civilized king? That was right.
You see the
And I
arrogance.
noticed the Islamophobes in the park, Raj, Metrosexual Steve, all of them, they don't have the patience to take on Brother Sabur. Any of them, they just go and go, get the Muslim.
And I do wonder wonder what is the purposes of you siding with Muslims in Speaker's Corner?
I'm just an elderly Asian
How peculiar. Maybe this is one reason that the people of Patriotic Alternative have thrown you out. Maybe that's just one reason. But the fact that you side with the Muslims, the Dawa teams of Speaker's Corner, not Muslims, the Dawa teams of Speaker's Corner, because hell, they do not represent Islam and they do not represent British Islam without a hesitation. Yet they are the specific individuals that you, formerly of Patriotic Alternative, are now repeatedly going out of your way to support. And to criticise those that may challenge the Dawa teams of Speaker's Corner.
You can challenge the Dawa team. I'm going to point out Islamophobia. Do what you want.
And this is why you're...
Uncle Omar was
And I guess this is one reason you're no longer welcome in Patriotic Alternative.
So you're happy to chase Ali Dawa today? You're happy to be Islamophobic? You're free.
How is that Islamophobic?
Did I not read Islamophobic? Do you remember what we said?
Do you have your own mind?
The government, Hansard, Parliament committees,
Get it right.
All of
this
them
time.
together.
All of them together. That's just.
Thank God for multicultural, multiracial Britain.
So here you see, on one hand, he's criticising multicultural England, and then on the next minute, he's standing up for the Dawa teams, the extremist Dawa teams, who hang around with people that are now in Belmarsh, who wear the microphones of people wallowing in Belmarsh, who've been convicted under the Terrorism Act. And then on the next second, the next breath, he's criticising multiculturalism. You could not make this up. So do you want to criticise multiculturalism, or do you want to criticise the extremist Dawa teams who hang around and perform for people that are currently wallowing in Belmarsh under the Terrorism Act? Meaningless word. Meaningless word.
Say that last week about Belmarsh, I missed that. It tells you what you said.
I was saying, on one hand, he's sticking up for the Dawa teams, who amongst their ranks have people currently sitting in Belmarsh who've been convicted under the Terrorist Act, and who were regular cameramen, and who went for dinner with them, who they wore his microphone. That's the sort of people he's sticking up for, on one hand.
You're looking very smart.
Thank you. And then on the next hand, he's criticising multiculturalism. Now, if that's not an oxymoron, if that's not a complete and utter contradiction, I don't know what is. So he's clearly playing a game. What is the game that he's playing in sticking up for extremist Dawa teams and yet trying to perform for the far right, for the white supremacists? Criticising multiculturalism. It's a complete contradiction that surely the most ignorant person can identify. It's not difficult. It's not difficult.
We want to bring back conservatism.
Well, that might be quite true.
That's interesting what you said. That's why I turned around for really. That's a
And these are all, irrefutable facts.
What is irrefutable facts?
That some members of the Dawa teams that have come here have actively supported and actively been people convicted under the Terrorism Act.
Right, and so
Currently sitting in Belmarsh. And
there's bad apples wherever you go.
And Ralph seems to be regularly going out of his way now to support them, which I find incredibly perplexing why he would be doing this.
I think he doesn't support the terrorists, he supports the
Dawa teams.
Right, well,
and is highly critical of anyone that is challenging them.
First I thought he said something about Darwin, so I turned around.
No. We want to promote good, healthy family values for all people.
And you think the Dawa teams represent that?
Not all of the Dawa team, but they're bad apples.
But
And
generally, you think they hold very similar beliefs to you in some sense.
oh yeah, it's very old-fashioned traditional values, and that is against the current trend that the cathedral is controlling. They want us to all be they want us to all be individualistic consumer beings. But the Muslims, they manage.
Sorry, who wants us to be individual?
The leading powers, the cathedral, the people who
And you go with a more collectivist.
Well, even if we're not the same exactly, if we have enough things in common, then there's no reason we can't go together.
So you're taking more of a collectivist principle than an individualist.
Yeah, being pragmatic.
That's what the left does, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, and they've been very successful that way. So that's what
You're glad of that?
Because
you're sharing that.
No, I'm not glad of it because I'm against them, but I at least.
Why are you against them?
The left, because they have a warped notion of reality that is not based in.
So they're choosing different collectives to what you're choosing.
Yeah, but it doesn't lead to anything stable.
This is the most hardy conversation I've had today. Carry on. This is more like.
So what's your collective that you choose?
Oh, the English people, the British people. I want us to have strong family values.
People like Ralph.
There's been mixing with the British people. So
You've spotted that. I've spotted that too. A lot of mixing for centuries.
We've all been British. We've been fighting for it.
That's kind of what British is, isn't it?
No, the British obviously. Well, the British had a strategy that's been very successful by
mixing. So the British strategy of mixing has been very successful.
Yes, but still
made us strong.
But still recognising who is a real Brit.
So many of them are imposters, are they?
Not imposters, they're honoured guests.
So take my son as an example. Let's go personal.
Right.
Half of his DNA is English.
Yeah.
And I trace my family tree back centuries. It's solidly English.
Yeah.
Half of his DNA is Russian.
Right.
Is he an imposter? Is he where's he?
He is an honoured guest who.
So he's an honoured guest even though he was born here.
No.
He's got a passport. Half of his DNA is English.
He has to recognise that he is not as native as the indigenous Brits because he's lost half of his DNA. But that's not an argument of exclusion, it's just inclusion. But the fact that
you said he's an honoured guest, so if ever a time arrives where honoured guests become less honoured,
you have to kick him out.
Where does someone whose half their DNA is here, half their DNA is somewhere else, what happens to those people?
Well, it depends. Does he claim being Russian in his citizenship? If his only citizenship is British,
he's got both.
Alright, so again, I can't see.
So what do we do with him?
We don't do anything with him, but we have to recognise that he can't be as British as the people who
Why not?
100 because they don't have Russian. They don't have a Russian passport. They only have an English passport. Their genetics are 100% English.
So it does come down to DNA tests to measure the proportion.
Well, the fact that
what proportion do you need? So 50-50 isn't enough. What about 5%, 95%? 95% English DNA, 5% Nigerian. Where does that person lay?
Look, no one would have this argument if we were in Japan, for example.
Well, we're not in Japan, we're in Britain. So should we continue? Don't try and take it off somewhere else. No, because context is, I agree with religious folk on this, context can be important.
Do you think anyone
would have... And the context of Britain is very different to the context of Japan.
Do you think anyone had this conversation pre-World War II about who is British, you know?
Well, we were all British because my
everyone knew
granddad
who
was
was
British.
Everyone knew there's a hierarchy. Everyone knew their place, and I keep explaining.
So do you think prior to did you say Second World War? Was that your quote?
Yeah.
So do you think prior to the Second World War there were no immigrants?
Oh, they were immigrants, but they were honoured guests.
Well, you said they're still honoured guests. Even my son, who was born here, you've defined as an honoured guest.
Yes, because he's half Russian. You know, the Russians.
So it's not about. So it's not even about coming here that makes you an honoured guest. So back to the percentage. So my son's example, 50-50. He's an honoured guest. What if he was 95% English, 5% Russian? Would he still be an honoured guest?
No, he would be pretty English.
So what's the percentage? What's the tipping point?
The point is,
I've got to answer the question.
No. All right. How about let's take it from the context of a Japanese person. I marry a Japanese.
You can't answer the question. You have to go off to Japan. Always the argument's taken off to Japan.
No, because you're going to twist.
Because you don't have an argument for Britain.
No, I do.
You have to take the argument off to Japan.
I'm using the principles that would apply to all countries.
Why? Why should a principle apply to all countries?
Because think of it from the Japanese point of view.
No, I'm thinking it from a British perspective.
Right, but the British perspective today has been warped because leftists have destroyed the narrative of what we used to think. So unwarp it exactly. So listen from the Japanese perspective. I marry a Japanese person. I have children. The Japanese would not see my children as Japanese, you know. So
you know that that's a statement of fact.
Yeah, it's a statement of fact.
How do you know that?
Because all Japanese will say that. All Japanese will say that.
All the ones you've met and asked. How many have you met and asked? How many have told you? How many have told you? How many of you took?
Oh, you can't say all Japanese. Come on, you
That's
don't
an
know all
anecdote
Japanese.
that I don't think is
The
even
Japanese
based
are
on.
very, very
but you
collectivistic.
can't say-
They're
you
very
can only say all,
ethnocentric.
can you?
They're very ethnocentric. Don't claim you know anything about the
White
Japanese
people are
mindset.
not. White people are not.
No,
you have
they're
to
more,
accept
they're
that
more
reality.
individualistic.
I'm
But
a
the point
Korean
is,
Exactly.
Japanese,
Right,
Chinese.
right,
You
right,
have to
right,
accept
right,
that
right,
reality.
right, right, right. But it doesn't change the fact that if, say, someone is half English and half Nigerian, he wouldn't be able to join a reenactment group for the Celts or Saxons or Tudors.
The bottom line is this
You
does
know.
come down to race, doesn't it? And skin color.
Obviously, there's the foundations. Like, for example, your son, I wouldn't really care that half his
Exactly,
DNA is
but
Russian.
if he was half Nigerian, you would care. Which
I'm
is
gonna- well,
clear evidence that it's race based.
Yeah, because
This is a race-based
because
position.
because
A
because
colour-based
the Europeans are in a genetic block that is recognisable as who they
But
are.
I've said, how
Russians are
many
Russians.
times have I heard people, and I know you'll say you're not there, but how many times have I heard people and supporters of patriotic alternatives say it's not about race, it's not about colour, because we don't want Italy, French, Russians, Germans coming in. But you're, as is always the case, have actually highlighted it's absolutely to do with race. Because you just pointed out, as people have done, the fact that my son's half Russian, they're white, you can't see it, it's indistinguishable, is much less of a problem than if he was half Nigerian. So again, proving my point, it is pure white racism, white-based supremacy. Because it doesn't matter half Russian, half Italian, but half Nigerian, whole different kettle of fish.
Yeah, because they are genetically further apart. Therefore, it's more
So again, it's coming down to DNA
It's
tests.
getting worse, eh?
So it's coming down about percentages of genome that are said.
because being half English and half Russian, you still look like your grandparents.
You look like. See, it does come down to what you look like.
Yes.
Every conversation I've ever had
because,
with people of your ilk.
Yeah, because people who are half black, half
So why
white,
are people on your-
they suffer from depression.
So why are people on your-
They suffer
why are people on-
from identity issues. They are
So who suffer from identity
who
issues?
are half black and half white.
That's nonsense.
Oh,
That's
I've
again
spoken to
absolute.
them.
You mixed race.
Yeah, I've spoken to all
Do you
of
suffer from identity problems? Because of your ethnic mix,
I worked with,
or because of 101 things.
Look, I work with children. They are a lot of them have ADHD.
But whether they're white, black, or mixed race,
Oh yeah,
there's no evidence to say mixed race people have more ADHD
Wait,
than
No, there's nothing.
White
There's nothing wrong with them. It's just that, again, there's the identity
No,
issues because they don't look
No,
like their
you're
ancestors.
telling them they have identity issues.
No, they know it.
Oh, you're actually saying
If they watch a program about British people and
They listen to you for 5
they
minutes.
don't see themselves as those characters, you know. So I'm not blaming them.
Whose fault is that?
Well, their parents.
It's their parents for interbreeding. How dare they?
Wait.
Overwhelming national culture.
No, look, I don't blame the parents. I don't blame the parents either. But
Is interracial breeding bad?
it's in moderation.
Oh,
Sorry, so it's good and it's okay in moderation, but not
Well, it
excessive.
depends what you mean by.
When you say in moderation, what do you mean by that?
I think that's it. So, like the British, they were happy for them to co-mix with the Indians because it helped community efforts, and you know, it's good to have new DNA every now and then.
So you're saying a percentage of the population should be allowed to do it?
But, within reason.
So how are you going to enforce that?
Well, that's the thing. I can't, but it's really down to
You want to
people's
encourage
choices, and I can
you want
only,
to
I can only be I can only say, look, people are free to do what they like. I'm just telling you what the data and the evidence.
So you're going to, through your whatever, you're going to try and discourage people from having interracial.
Well, I would
sex.
say, like, for example, there's always the trend of white women going out with black men because it's all on the placards, it's all on the commercials. So there's an active effort
Surely it
to
would be
have that
very-
type of
surely it
mixing.
would be relatively
I would
easy
say
to
to
measure
and
happiness between.
Well, yeah, that's the thing.
ethnically
Yeah,
mixed
that's the thing. You know, if
people
they're doing
and
if they're doing it because
very
they
simple
yeah
to
yeah,
do.
but if they're having children because they generally love each other, then that's all fine. But
That's generally how it goes.
no, I do not believe that they're doing it out of love. They're doing it out of
What are they doing it out?
propaganda.
Because they've seen an advert with a mixed race couple.
Propaganda, exactly. And
Have you ever chosen your partners because of what you've seen in adverts?
I'm attracted to what I'm attracted to. But,
But those people that are not. Those people are not. Those people are dumb fools that are influenced by all this propaganda in the adverts.
No. The women are being taught to.
Oh, the women,
not
it's not a man
not
thing,
not
it's
to mix within their race. They're taught that's dull, that's old-fashioned.
Really?
Yeah.
I think you might
In
be
the
seeing
schools,
something
in the
that's not bad.
universities, you know.
How are the schools teaching white girls that it's dull to go out with a white boyfriend?
It's
How
all,
is
it's
that
all, it's all the
happening?
little propagandas where they're learning
Maybe I'm just missing.
where they're learning about the Nazi history and saying like,
Oh, so being white is associated with your Nazi heritage.
some people might say it that way. You know.
This gets worse.
So are you actually saying that's interesting? Are you
Are you an
saying
entertainer?
Nazis are portrayed negatively, so therefore white girls are getting black boyfriends?
Not just the Nazis, the colonial,
Not just
the colonial past that was also.
How would an
Exactly.
English white girl be impacted by negative publicity about the Nazis?
Loads of things. They're learning about the Holocaust.
Why are you associating a white English
Because
girl
that's
with a German Nazi?
because that's what the lefty schools do. You know?
How is there ever any association made between a German Nazi in the 1930s and 1940s
Because
with being a white English girl?
because they label it in as the same symptoms of the.
Who do? How? Where?
Well, the school, the educational system, they
So they're
label
conflating German Nazis
with
in
the
1930s.
colonial with the colonial past, with the French,
Nazis.
with the
They're
British.
conflating Nazism with colonialism.
Yes,
of
they see
Britain.
it as the same sentence that white people can't help
I've
but
never seen any of that. I've never seen any of this.
Read, where did you get
Where'd
it
you
from?
pick this up? I know we all live in our bubbles.
Dude,
Where
this is
you
what
picking
this is
up?
what Antifa say. They don't care.
Antifa. So
Yeah.
Antifa are leading the curriculum, the national curriculum.
They are the result of the natural curriculum.
Well, there might be some truth in that.
Look,
But that's in that direction.
Why is it so hard?
Antifa
Why
aren't
is it so hard to grasp that people would think negatively of whites in general if they learn specifically
Because
about
of
the Holocaust and
because of
Nazism?
history lessons about Nazis. I don't see any link in history lessons about the evils of Nazis and National Socialism with whiteness.
So why is it that they call
So you
why do they call the British Nationalist Party, which does not have anything to do with national
which
socialism?
party?
The British Nationalist Party, the BNP.
BNP.
Yeah. Why is it they labelled as Nazis, even though they're trying to talk about British history and
Do you
British
not
culture?
think the BNP are Nazis?
They're
Like,
made-
in any way, shape or form?
Obviously, they're people who have infiltrated them, but
Oh, they've been infiltrated.
They're the Conservative Party as well.
They start with good intentions, and then they get infiltrated.
That sounds a bit like Hitler.
That sounds a bit conspiratorial.
It's not conspiratorial. It's the same with Generation Identity. They have started out with
But
good intentions, but
these
then
are
got infiltrated by
minority.
Nazis.
These are minority, insignificant. Most people don't know about them. They are in your bubble. Yeah, Generation Identity. They're very visual within your bubble. But most people in this country would never have heard of the Generation Identity. They would have never heard of Mark Hollett. They would have never heard of Patriotic Alternative. They would have heard of the BNP. And they would have heard of the National Front. But they wouldn't have heard of these other groups or entities. They're meaningless, tiny minority groups. But anyway, go back to you think the National Socialists of Germany in the 1930s and 1940s get an unfair negative portrayal in the British history lessons in the national curriculum.
It does seem that way. Like we don't. Why is it we don't learn about what the Soviets did?
Well, no,
Why is
I'm
it we
talking
don't-
about
Why is it we don't learn about the gulags, about Stalin? It needs to be balanced out. But no, it's all pushed,
but you're-
it's all
yeah,
pushed
but
on one
that
thing.
wasn't my question.
Colonialism is bad. White imperialism is bad.
No,
Nazism
I
is
was
bad.
specifically talking
Fascism
about
is
Nazis.
bad. Communism
German
is fine.
Nazis.
Communism is fine. In fact, we are communists. We want class equality. That's that. Even though
Class equality does not equal communism.
that is how they see it.
Equal rights does not equal communism.
You know what the
Again,
you know what the utopia vision
for
is.
effect,
You know what the
you're
utopia vision is.
exaggerating.
I am
For
not
effect, you're
exaggerating.
saying that
They
equates
want
to
a
that.
utopia where everyone doesn't have to work.
Women's rights, gay rights equals communism. No, it does not.
It does lead that way.
In fact, look at those more communist
no.
societies
That's a good
across
point.
the
That's a
world.
good point.
Are they gay friendly? No, they are not. Because they're
The
totalitarian fascist
the
regimes.
movements that started off as being for women's rights or for gay rights or all that stuff, they
Don't come from communist states or Marxist
Listen.
states.
They started off with good intentions, but then they got infiltrated by the Marxists to go to those ideologies. It's the same principle.
So where can we look at across the world now or historically at particularly Marxist states or communist or near communist states where we can say, yeah, look at their massive trans movement, look at their massive LGBT movement. It doesn't exist, does it?
It does, because
if you're saying the two are connected, where are the examples?
well, you know, like
I mean, I don't know, but Venezuela, what's the level of gay rights in Venezuela?
well, it
I certainly
was.
know what
In
the
fact,
level
Venezuela had slut walks before they
Had what?
Slut walks. No, serious. They were very progressive because you know, yeah, exactly. And then
what? Are you serious? Where? Pussy Riot. That was one small group. But
Spread a whole movement.
yeah, but they're not.
Feminists in Russia.
yeah, and Poland had like a recently LGBT rally in a very conservative
They
area.
do not. They did. Not so much.
Well, is
now.
that why you tried to imprison a lot of them? They're a threat to some extent.
I think you did prison some of them, didn't you?
That's a fact.
And I think the reason, not that I'm supporting this, but I think the reason that they were imprisoned is for doing naked sexual protests in
In a
churches.
church. Yeah.
But my point is, that,
And Putin and the Russian Orthodox Church are now like that.
well, my point is, the point.
Imprison them over there.
I say it, I'm not supporting
My
it.
point is, the reason that the feminist LGBT groups get infiltrated and pushed to Marxist intentions is because they are all they're all outside of the
Spies on all of
minority.
them. Goes to all the meetings.
No, think about it. If you're like a gay person, then you see themselves outside of the wider bubble, which are well. If they promote the nuclear family, then that seems something that's something that you're not part of. So they are easy recruits for the Marxists because the Marxists want to destroy.
Shit. Get yourself a list.
Do that again?
Yeah, that's one of us.
And the Marxists swell numbers because there are people who are
making me
dissidents,
thirsty.
who don't belong in the group, who are.
So can I go back to a point 5 minutes ago? So about you saying that National Socialists of Germany, the Nazis of Germany, are portrayed in British national curriculum in schools negatively. Are you saying that because you don't feel other evils like the Gulag, the Stalin,
I will celebrate I will celebrate that the British defeated the Nazis. I will celebrate that the British defeated the Napoleonic French. I will celebrate that the British defeated
But you think the Nazis
Spanish.
are portrayed negatively in the British education system?
They're done.
Yet you're glad you beat them. Were you glad we beat them?
Yeah, but doesn't mean that.
You think they're negatively
But the way,
portrayed? You think the enemy is negatively portrayed?
they're portrayed in a way that is trying to demonize white people as a whole.
So how's the portrayal of the German Nazis done in a way to negatively portray white people?
But this is why people say, oh, Trump is starting the concentration camps, even though all he's doing is trying to like secure the borders. Yeah, exactly. So don't you see, like
Trump and concentration?
look, any slight details, any slight similarity with what the Nazis did, any white nation does something similar, that's automatically
nation.
portrayed as a Nazi. It's the same. The Hungarians, the Polish, they are all described as being Nazis, even though what
Are
they're
they?
doing.
Are
Yes.
they?
Are you serious? Of course they're being
The Czech Republic is portrayed as Nazi.
Yeah, because they are white nationalists. They are nationalists for their own people. That's the thing. Hungary for the Hungarians. There should be nothing wrong with that. Polish for the Polish. There should be nothing wrong with that. English for the English. There should be nothing wrong with that. German for the Germans. There should be nothing wrong with that. But no,
So
that is
again,
Nazi.
so where
that is
does my
fascist,
son
that
go?
is-
Where does my son go that's 50-50?
Look, he
You
gets-
just
he
said
gets the both-
English for the England for the
He
English.
gets the best of both worlds, English and Russian.
But you just said English for the English.
Yeah, and the fact he's half English is good enough.
But you won't give me a percentage.
Oh, come on. Like,
No, but
again,
this is the road you're taking the argument down. It comes down to DNA percentages.
no, I'm making the
It's
argument.
X% of your
I
DNA.
am making the argument that any other nationality would say. The Indians would be like, you're not Indian if you're half white.
They love white people. The Japanese and
But the Japanese.
So apparently you're wrong.
No, they still have boundaries. They still, even if they
What are
love
those boundaries?
that, if you are not pure Indian or
They're,
pure
so they're not
Japanese,
statutory boundaries.
they are statutory for everywhere you go.
No, you know
Yes,
what the
they
word
are.
statutory means in law, written in law.
Yeah, the law can be swayed, but appearances stay.
Is there anything in Japanese law?
Appearances and genetics are objective. You cannot argue.
Is there anything in Japanese law? So say like if I was a Japanese heritage British person and I wanted to move to Japan, but I didn't have a Japanese passport, would my Japanese genetics, in the eyes of the Japanese law, enable me to get a Japanese passport?
That's complimenting
Well, mine was a question, is that the case?
Yeah, Japan is mostly for the Japanese.
I know, that's not my question.
Isn't that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying if I was a British person of Japanese heritage and I wanted to get a Japanese passport, would my Japanese genetics enable me to get a Japanese passport?
Yeah, I mean, Israel.
Well, none of us know.
Israel has a different.
Yeah, but Israel is also an incredibly ethnically diverse country. One of the most ethnically diverse countries in that part of the
You got to
world.
admit there's a hierarchy, you know.
No, well,
Yes.
not on the
Ashkenazi Jews at the
on the
top.
streets of Tel
Ashkenazi Jews at the top.
Not
you know.
on the streets
Just like
of Tel
how the
Aviv.
high caste
Not on the
Indians at the
streets of
top.
Tel Aviv.